Hey guys, today's Thursday, by the way, the 14th, March 14th, excuse me, and it's probably, I don't even know what time it is, I'm thinking it's probably close to 2:30, let me see, it's 2:30, 14:30, it's 55 degrees Fahrenheit outside and 69 in here. So, everything seems to be hunky-dory. I don't have the heat on. I went out for coffee this morning, that's why I'm late today. I'm just working, putzing around the van a little bit. This is another small fuse box. This is a 6-banger. I have one of these in the back of the van that the radios are hooked up to. This one I keep under the van, right. Up underneath near the dash, out of the way, so I can just tie into it quick if I need power direct. But when I was out there, I was working with one of the fuses in the van, and I noticed that the wire moved on this. Well, okay, let me just tighten it down a little bit. Well, I'm tightening it down, but it's not tightening. It's just not doing what it's supposed to be doing. So I kind of said, let me just take it out and look at it, and this is stripped. So now, I never really did anything to strip that because, you know, you kind of know where it's taut, you know, and where it's going to be okay. But for some reason, it's stripped. So, let me take it out and bring it in here. Now, I'm not going to be able to rethread that by no means. I don't want to take the whole thing apart if I don't have to. But on the other side of the coin is I don't want to just put or cut this off, break it off, melt it off, whatever the case may be, and then have a bolt here that's bare that could be touching metal or something. You know, then I have to pay attention as to where I put it. And I don't see any other way, to be honest with you, to get this off without breaking it. And I don't want to break it either. I mean, I would think it just snaps together, but it doesn't appear to do that. So I really... Well, I guess if worse comes to worse, let me do this first. Let's take out the fuses. That might help. And then let's see. Because if I can get this out, then I can lift that bolt up and put a new bolt in there. See, this doesn't want to come off. Somehow or other, they got it locked in there pretty good. And I can't see. Well, maybe, hold on. Maybe if I can get one under this end. Maybe. Maybe we just got to push these little tabs in here. So I might get this off yet. Okay, there we go. Alright, so now I can take this screw out, lift this off. Actually, I can lift it off without taking the screw out. Okay, that works for me. I don't need a bolt this long. I just need one that's going to fit the hole. I probably have one identical to this someplace. But again, I don't need it that long, so it's not that it's a big issue to have it long. Come on, get out of there. Be nice. That's what you're supposed to do. Come out. Maybe I do have to take that screw out of there. I'm thinking I can just kind of unthread it a little bit, seeing that it's kind of on an angle, and it's using both sides of the hole. Did it on, yeah, did it on thread, and it did. Okay. All right. So what I need to do is, I don't need the exact bolt, as long as I have something that's going to be that thickness, and I have something with a nut. Now I am thinking that I have something really close to the exact thing over here. Hold on a minute.
Number 66. It's a critical tool for any job where it's important to measure twice, cut once. The tape measure. The spring-driven model was patented in 1829.
Yeah, this would
The
probably
inventor
work.
also manufactured a used to hold the shape of the skirts. After he got the idea to put graduated...
And if I remember right, I want it to be a hexed. Right. It's got to be a hexed head so it'll lock in. So here's one right here. So if the hex will fit in the hole, this will be fine. So let's see. And this one's shorter. Much shorter. Looks like the hex head may be too big though. Oh, let's see. We're not going to know until we try it. So other than that, it's a nice day. I don't know what the weather forecast is for the rest of the week, but it does fit perfect. Okay, but for most part, we should be getting close to constantly warm weather. Okay, this one goes. Well, see, I don't like that way. I'm going to put it this way. Or do I have to? They may have it set up that way. 1 4. See, I'd rather not have this button up against this side, because that button is to allow you to take this off. So I'm going to try to put it backwards, because I want the button over here where it can be easily accessible to my paws. There we go. And now the button's over here instead of being tucked down in there where I can't get in there. So, and this will go there. Alright, so let's put these fuses back in. 30, 30, and then I should have a 20, 2 10s, okay, that's 2 10s, a 5, and a 15, okay, there. Okay, now we have the lock washer, which I want. This I'm throwing away. This I'll keep. And this we're all set. So now we are all set here. We can go back out and do what it is we have to do. The nut's a little smaller. I may take this bigger washer just to make sure that I have enough to hold down and the nut doesn't go through the eyelid. So that's kind of where we're at, guys. Excuse me. So it's a decent day. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Today's Thursday. Tomorrow's Friday. Like I said earlier, it's 14:30. Well, actually, it's 14:32. Had a meeting last night. It went well. A few little things in the meeting sometimes gets a little confusing. Excuse me, guys. Like I said earlier, we are doing some bylaw changes, and you got to make sure they're right. You can't do them overnight. We've been working on them now for 3 months. And we're to a point, well, actually a little bit longer than that, but we're to a point to where we're basically done. It's just rewriting them to the way, you know, with the little changes and moving things around. But one of them were mutual aid. Now, before I was even with the company, or the squad, whatever they want to call it, it's called a squad. Before I was with the squad, I was always told by the two past captains that, one, we do not go on the highway. Two, we do not go into East Haven. And that's kind of like what it was. Well, one of the guys in the squad who's been around a long time, sometimes, you know, he talks old school sometimes because he's still caught in those days, but he still makes a lot of sense. And one of the things were change the bylaws and add that we can't go in these two areas. Well, I think that's a good idea because we're not always going to be the one. You know, we're setting forth something for the new people that are going to come in when we're no longer in the around. You know, and we're not going to be around. It gives them something to start with. You know, and if they want to change them as they grow, that's fine. I mean, that's how things work. So at that point, we wanted to make these changes. So the part with the mutual aid, not being able to go into East Haven or on the interstates, highways, stuff like that. Which, to be honest with you, I don't want to go on the highways. It's dangerous up there. Right? Let the state do that. They're trained for that, you know, the state troopers. And even with their training, they're getting hit. I believe we just had one killed in Colorado. Got struck by a car in a snowstorm or something. But meanwhile, I said, well, okay, let's do it. Let's make these changes. And while we're making it, let's think them out to see if there's any other thing that we need to do. One of them is, again, it was an unwritten, but it's a law in the department, in the towns. It just wasn't part of ours. Our bylaws was no firearms, which I agree. So we wanted to put that in there. And a few other things. But before I went any further with any of this stuff and started making suggestions, I wanted to talk to the chief first. Because I got to know, you know, where they are, where they stand, and where they expect us to stand. Because we are part of that department. So therefore, he's our chief as well. You know, we just can't start writing, you know, bylaws that don't fall in uniform with the town. So we can change them a little bit, but the laws are the laws. So anyhow, I talked to the chief. I said, Chief, I said, listen, when I came on, I was told by the captain in charge at that time, as well as Ernie, that we do not participate in mutual aid with East Haven or the highway. He goes, that's right. He says, when it comes to mutual aid, you don't go anywhere beyond the city or the town limits. Meaning, we don't go to Guilford, we don't go to North Branford, we don't go anywhere other than Branford. So the captain that had just left, one of his arguments were, Well, if we're there with the fire department and we are part of the fire department, if the fire department is called, we should be okay. We should go, you know, for mutual aid. So if a fire department is going to Guilford, we should be able to go to Guilford because our job is to protect our firemen. You know, well, that makes sense. And they have been doing North Branford. North Branford doesn't argue the point. The problem being is, and Guilford, to be honest with you, the problem being is, though, we are not insured once we go beyond our town. So if we are on the Guilford side and something happens to one of us, our town doesn't have to cover it because we weren't called to go there. Okay? And in order for us to go there, that town has to say to our chief, bring in your guys, you know, bring us in. Then they accept responsibility for our insurances and bring us in. So I talked to the squad last night and I told them, the chief said we are not to render mutual aid to any other town. We are not to go over the town line in any way, shape, or anything at all, shape or form, unless he tells us to. And he can't tell us to until he is asked and knows that once he's asked that we have insurance to do so. Okay. So that's what it is. So now, don't you think that brings up, I don't want to say an argument, but a heavy debate to the point to where I said that's enough, stop right where we are. We are not going to render mutual aid to anybody. Done. If we can't go by, if you guys don't understand, the chief, our commander, telling us we don't, unless he says to, we don't go. That's all there is to it. You don't understand that. We don't do mutual aid. That's what's going in the bylaws. Now, that leaves it open. The chief can still say, you know, later, come in. But as far as the bylaws go, we are not going to render mutual aid. Done. Now, like I say, the chief, if he tells us go or come or do or don't, you know, we still do, don't, whatever. But at that point, we no more mutual aid. So that kind of like resolves it. And I had to get loud. I had to say, that's it, we're done. Over. I'm not going to sit here and belabor this thing. All right? So we got that taken care of. And there was another one that's been in our bylaws as well as being in the, do I have them here? Where are they in the van? The rules and regulations, that's code of conduct. I must have them in the van. It's basically the laws, the rules, the regulations, and things on what you have to do in order to be a member. You do have time to do it, however, you have to do it. And one is, there's a few tests that you have to take. Now, you can take them online, or we can just offer them on one of our meetings. It doesn't make a difference, but you have to take them. Now, if you're a fireman, the chances are you've already taken it. You may not have realized you've taken it, but you've taken it, for the most part. Now, again, I don't want to say for sure, but because I have noticed that some of the smaller towns, and I'm not knocking anything, or anybody, but I noticed, you know, traveling like I used to, that the smaller towns in your Midwest states and your southern states are a little bit more laxed sometimes on some of these so-called tests. You know, when it comes to safety, that's all standards. They all have to do that. But these other tests are administrative type testing. And sometimes they're just a little laxed on those things. So, I mean, like, for instance, I'm still a member with the Civil Defense. Now, when the wife and I went to South Dakota, Sturgis, and as we're driving through some of these small towns of, 700 or 800 people, they didn't have then fire departments. They had civil defense. Civil defense did the fires, they did the law enforcement, they did the accidents, they did everything. And on my other van, I don't have it on this one, on my other van I had 2 civil defense stickers. Because again, I'm still with them, but they're not as active here anymore. But here I am parked, the wife and I, where the hell, Mitcham, I think it was. Next thing I know, I got somebody coming up to me asking me to help them. And what are you talking about? Well, you're with the Civil Defense. Time out. Yes, I am. However, I don't know what your laws are, so I really can't help you here, guy. I mean, it wasn't life or death, because then I would have helped. But I'm not gonna, tell this guy that, okay, let me go give a ticket because you needed, you didn't like something or whatever. So at that point, I said, listen, if it's an emergency, I'll get a hold of the highway department for you, the state, which is the state police or county sheriff or whatever you want to call them back then. But it wasn't an emergency at the time, so it wasn't a big deal. I mean, if I can render assistance to somebody, naturally I'm going to, but I can't do it as like a civil defense if I don't know what's going on, because your the laws that you use here, you use it differently than what we use it where I am. But like I said, a lot of these, so that got into a big debate, because I don't see where I have to take these. Why do I have to take these? Because it's mandatory by the department, and we still fall under the department rules and regs and laws. So that's where we're going with that. So that didn't get real heated, but it got heated. They want to nitpick it. I don't know if they just don't understand,